This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agun Erev Shabbos Rabbi Isai. So now we're holding Erev Tisha B'Av, Tavshin Ayin Vav. We go to the last psukim in Megillas Eicha. Al Zehaya Davel Libeinu. For this, our heart is sick. Al Eila Choshchu Eineinu. For these, our eyes have become dark. Al Har Tzion Sheshamim. For the mountain of Tzion that lays desolate, Shualim Hilchuvai, the foxes walk there. Ata Hashem, but you God, L'olam Teshev, you dwell forever, Kisacha L'dar Vadar, your throne is for all generations. Lama Lo Netzach Tishkachenu, why do you forsake us forever? Ta'azvenu La'oirach Yomim. Well, the Rabbi Yirmiyah is telling us that for all things, what makes our hearts sick, what makes our eyes darken, are the foxes that roam the Temple Mount. But you, God, you dwell forever. Why do you forsake us? And interestingly, even though the psukim seem to say that this is what caused us more heartache than anything else, Rabbi Akiva had a different viewpoint on this episode. The Gemara says at the end of Makos, Ukvar Haya Ram Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva, Mahalchen B'derech. Ram Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva, they're going on the road, V'shamu kol hamoina shel roimi. Mipalta, Beracha ikmea ve'esremil. They heard a big tumult coming out of Rome, Italy. Yeah. V'hizchilu boichen, they began to cry. Rabbi Akiva masachek, Rabbi Akiva was laughing. Amrulay mimnei ma'atam masachek. They said, hey, why are you laughing? Amar lahem v'atam mimnei ma'atam boichen. What do you want from me? How about you? Why are you crying? Amrulay halalu kushiyim shemishtachim la'atzam makachim avodz kecham yoshim betach v'hashket. These Kushites, they bow down to idols, they sacrifice to Avodah Zarah, they sit tranquil. Va'anu beis hadoim raglei alekeinu saraf ba'esh, and us the footstool of our God. V'loi nifkeh, we shouldn't cry. How can we not cry? These idolaters, they bow down to emptiness and they're successful, and our God's footstool is burnt. Amar lahen lekach ani mitzachek, says Rebbi Akiva, that's why I'm laughing. Uma lo'ivrei ritzaynoi kach. If this is what God rewards those who violate His will, la'oisei ritzaynoi alachas kama lekama. Just imagine how much reward is in store for us. I once thought to say, we know that Tisha B'Av is called a moyed. Kara alai moyed, lishbar b'acharoi. How is Tisha B'Av a moyed? I think I once saw this from the Glatstein Rebbi. Tisha B'Av is a moyed. With moyadim like that, maybe the moyed is like this. The pasuk says, "B'shetzef ketzef estarti panai rega mimech, u'verachamim gedolim akabtzech, rega katoin azavtich." Right? V'yavas oilam ahavtech. The Rabbi tells us like this, that God, in a moment of fierce anger, hides His face from us. Rega kotoin azavtich uverachamim gedolim akabtzech. I just forsake you for a moment, but with great mercy I will gather you in. Think about what the Navi is saying. The Navi is saying that Hashem's anger. But the chesed that Hashem has in store for us is rachamim gedolim. So can you imagine? It's been a lot of tragedy. The laundry list of the kinnis is a long list. And yet, that is called rega kotain in comparison to the good times that are in store for us. So we use the kinnis of Tisha B'Av as the barometer. How good will things be? V'achras hayamim. Well, if all the kinnis is only rega kotain, then can you imagine the taiva that's osad for for those who are Yirei Shamayim. So that's an element of the Moyed of Tisha B'Av, because Tisha B'Av gives us the measuring tool, the measuring rod of what's in store for Klal Yisrael. Okay, the Gemara continues. The Gemara says, Shuv pamachas hayu olam liyushalayim. One time they were going up to Jerusalem. Kivan she'yigil lahar hatzofim. They come to Har Hatzofim. That's the place where you're supposed to rise kriya kiru bigdeyim. Kivan shehigil lahar abayis ro shual yatzam ibeis kodshe hakadashim. They saw a fox emanating from the Holy of Holies. His chilu hein boichem. They began to cry. Rabbi Akiva mitzachek. Rabbi Akiva was laughing. Amru loy mibnei ma atam mitzachek. Why are you laughing? Amr lahem mibnei ma atam boichem. You have a kasha why I'm laughing? It's always good to laugh. Why are you crying? He said, what do you mean? He says, Amrulai, Makom shekasav bai v'hazar hakarev yumas. This is a place that God writes that a foreigner, a stranger that enters this place will die. V'achshav shualim hilchu bai. And now foxes are defiling the place. V'lai nivka, how can we not cry? Amr lahen, Rabbi Akiva says, L'kach ani mitzachek. That's why I'm laughing. Because the pasuk says, I will bring to testify for me trustworthy witnesses. Es Uriah HaKoyen ve'es Zechariah ben Berechia. Uriah and Zechariah. V'chimayin in Uriah etzel Zechariah. What does Uriah have to do with Zechariah? What does Uriah have to do with Zechariah? Says the Gemara. Uriah b'mikdash rishon ve'Zechariah b'mikdash sheni. The Torah is making contingent the prophecy of Zechariah and the prophecy of Uriah. By Uriah it says, By Uriah it says, Zion will be plowed. By Zechariah it says, Before Uriah's Nevuah is Niskayim, maybe we won't be Zoichet to see the Kiyum of Zechariah's. But now that we see the kiyum of Uriah, that Sion is plowed, biyadua shenevuasai shel Zechariah miskayemes. Belashin has that amrulai, and they told him the following: Akiva nichamtanu, Akiva nichamtanu. When Rabbi Akiva saw the foxes, he had a different reaction than the Navi Yirmiyah. The Navi Yirmiyah said about the foxes, Al zeh haya daver libeinu. I'm sick when I see those foxes. And that's the same reaction Ram Gamliel, Rabbi Lozman Azariah, Rabbi Shua, and Rabbi Shua had. But when Rabbi Akiva saw the foxes, he laughed. The question is, what's the machlekes here about the foxes? Why did Ram Gamliel, and Rabbi Lozman Azariah, and Rabbi Shua cry? Why did Yirmiyah say it makes his heart grow sick? And Rabbi Akiva laughed. I mean, that's a pretty big machlokes. Where I come from, there's a klal in Shas. Afushe maflaginan loy mafashinan. We do not make big machlokes in. We try to limit the machlokes to as small as possible. So the question is, why such a big machlokes? Rabbi Gamliel is crying, Rabbi Akiva is laughing. So the Chassam Sofer, in his drashos for Ches Teves, writes as follows. There's a well-known machlokes about the original sanctity of Yerushalayim. Do we say Kitsha Rishayna, Kitsha L'Shaita, V'Kitsha L'Asad Lavai, or Kitsha Rishayna, Kitsha L'Shaita, V'Loi Kitsha L'Asad Lavai? And very interestingly, that happens to be a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. And Rabbi Akiva holds Kitsha Rishayna, Kitsha L'Shaita, V'Loi Kitsha L'Asad Lavai. And the other Chachamim, and this is how we paskin, we hold Kitsha Rishayna, Kitsha L'Shaita, V'Kitsha L'Asad Lavai. Well, says the Chassam Sofer, this is exactly the machlokes here. When Gamliel sees the Harabayas, he laughs. Foxes. Rabbi Akiva. He laughs. Why? Vasa Shlacht. When the Goyim came in, Ba Chalalim, Ba Pritzim Mechilaluhu, they profaned it. So it doesn't have Kedusha anymore, so let the foxes prance. Rabbi Akiva knows it's a big joke. Because in the Mirtz Hashem, we're laughing now, but Oz Yimol Eschak Pino, we'll really laugh then. It doesn't bother us that there are foxes prancing around the Har Bayis. Anyway, it doesn't have Kedusha. But the other Chachamim hold Kitcha Rishayna, Kitcha Lashaita, V'Kitcha La'asalavai. So it still has Kedusha. So Al Zeh Haya Davel Liveinu. Al Eilech Choshcho Einenu. What? Al Hartzion Shashamim Shualim Hilchuvai. You know why? Listen to how the Chassam Sofer reads the pasuk. Because Ata Hashem La'olam Teshev. You, God, you dwell there forever. Kitcha Rishayna, Kitcha Lashaita, V'Kitcha La'asalavai. Kisacha L'Darvadar. And therefore, if you're still there, why are you forsaking us by allowing the foxes to roam on the Temple Mount? Ata Hashem la'olam teshev. We paskin kitcha l'shaita, the kitcha la'asad lavai. An amazing pshat. L'chsam Sofer. Take a look.
Why can't we go to the Temple Mount?
Oh, we can't go exactly because we paskin kitcha rishayna, kitcha l'shaita, the kitcha la'asad lavai, and therefore somebody who has tumas zav can't go there. And even someone who's Tamei Meis, there's certain areas that are restricted. But that's a discussion for a different time. Right now, the only ones who could go there are the Shualim, the foxes. They could go. Okay, look at number 3. Avaleinin hukach. Ki kaimalan v'hach Yisrael Rabbi Yehuda ba'atzmai, Rabbi Yeshua ba'atzmai, kedusha rishayna kitchel asalavai, v'loi zazor shchina mikosim haravi. And what's the big tayeles? The big tayeles is that if Kedusha never remained there, it would be very hard to be redeemed. How will we ever able to return the Kedusha to the Makam HaMikdash? 1 second. V'im tia ata mishaylelas miko Kedusha. How will we be able to return to it? So he writes like this, in the middle of the piece. V'hine ze yadua b'shas ha'chorben heishiv kiviyachal achar yaminai. God withdrew his hand. V'nasan reshus la'oivim likanas lahechal. Omnam, we hold like this. So when the Goyim came in, God took a coffee break, but he came right back. Because Kitchel Asalavai. Miyarach Hazeh Chazra Shchina Kazmaravi. Lachenata Kisharo Shual Yoizmez Kozilashim Bachu. Because if they were able to do what they wanted, Ma loy laharshis oid leilach shualim amakam d'siva zarkov yumas. Vim came evada yesh livkois. Look how he reads the psukim. V'heimim divrei hanavi al har tzion shekvar shamim v'chorev v'adayin shulam ilchavai haloi kaimalon kedusha rishayna kidsha la'asad lavai. That's the meaning of the pasuk. Ata Hashem lo'olam teshev. So how do you let this happen to the Temple Mount? Okay.
But isn't it schwer from the lashon of the pasuk where it says Ata Hashem lo'olam teshev?
You live there forever.
In the future, Ata Hashem, the Olam, you will be.
L'olam you do.
Teshev, you will, which means you're not now.
No.
Teshev is lashon asid.
Forever you will be there. Forever.
It's also present.
Okay. Here's what we want to discuss today. Who are these foxes? Why did they see a fox? What is the allegory of the fox? So we're going to say 2 pshatim. We're going to say 3 pshatim. 1 the Aruch LaNer. 1 a combination of the Chassam Sofer and a little bit of a Chiddush. And 1 the great Talmud of Rav Moshe Zakuto. Who's Rav Moshe Zakuto? Who's Rav Moshe Zakuto? He's the Rebbi of Rav Yishaya Bason, who's the Rebbi of the Ramchal. And also, I didn't mean to do this. What's the allegory of the foxes? The Gemara in Yuma tells us the following. Look at number 5. Unbelievable Gemara. Vayitzaku al Hashem Elokim b'kol gadol. It's a pasuk in Ezra. They called out to Hashem in a great voice. My Omer, what they say? Amar Ravi Tamer Rabbi Yochanan. Baye. Whoa. Hainu haida achruve lemikdasha. This is what destroyed the mikdash. V'kalye lahechle, and burnt the hechal. V'katlinu lekul tzadike, and killed all the righteous. V'glinu liyisomei arahain. V'adayin marakoid beinon, it still dances among us. What were they referring to? They're referring to the Avodah Zarah, the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. Whoa! You know what destroyed the Mikdash? You know what burned down the Heichal? You know what killed all the tzaddikim? The desire for avodah zarah. Chlum yahavte lon ela lekvule be'agra. Why did you give us avodah zarah, God? So we should withstand and get reward. Lo yiyu b'inam v'le'agre. Meichel zayin. The only reason you gave us the temptation of avodah zarah is to give us more reward. Meichel zayin, Meichel toivus. Nafalahu piska merakia. A little tzetola fell down from heaven to have a ksivba emes. Said truth. We see from here God's signature is truth. They fasted 3 days, and 3 nights. God gave over to the Anshe Knesset Agdoila the desire for avodah zarah. They were mevatel avodah zarah. Also, listen carefully, Kiguria denura mibeis kodesh hakadoshim. A fiery lion emanated from the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's it! That's the temptation for avodah zarah. Why like a lion? Because it was powerful like a lion. Right? What is the Gemara says that one of the great worshippers of idols, who is also a big Talmid Chacham, said, you're mocking me. If you'd be around in my time, you'd be following my coattails, serving the avodah zarah. Right? So we see why a lion. It was a very powerful force, like a lion. So the Chacham said, let's catch it! Let's get it! So basically what they do, they try to grab it. While they were grabbing it, one hair fell out of its mane, and it screamed, and the voice went out 400 parsa. They said, what do we do with this big guy? He's a big guy. It's a big one. So the Navi said, put it in a canister of lead and close its mouth with lead. Okay. They got it. They captured it. Says the Aruch LaNer of Yaakov Ettlinger, 1 second. Is this the first time? Is this the only time an animal is coming out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim? 2 times in history. 1, the lion at the end of Bayis Rishon, and number 2, the fox at the end of Bayis Sheni. 2 animals emanate from the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Well, says the Aruch LaNer, says like this. Look at number 4. By the way, Rabbi Yaakov Emden says, the Gemara in Sukkah says on Daf Nun Beis that Hashem L'Asulav is going to show the Rishon, the Yetzer Hara, and it's going to look like what? A hair. Why a hair? That's the hair that fell out of that lion. That's the hair. Yesh lefarish, says the Aruch LaNer, when the Yanchin Knesset Dor daven to be mevatel the avodah zarah of the Yetzer Hara of avodah zarah, a lion came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Says the Aruch LaNer, so beautiful. Why was the first Beis HaMikdash destroyed? No? Avodah zarah. Why was the Bayis Sheni destroyed? Sinas Chinam. By the Bayis Rishon, a lion came out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. What's the lion? The Yetzer Hara of avodah zarah. The Yetzer Hara of avodah is very strong. What did Menashe say to Rav Ashi? Yihavis Hasam, you would grab the hem of my garment and run after it. But during Bayis Sheni, the Yetzer Hara was not so strong because the Anshe Knesset Agdol were mevatel it. So now the Yetzer Hara can't knock you over with brute strength. Now the Yetzer Hara has to be shifty, clever, very maneuver, very sly. Avada, go learn! But with that guy, you should see what Nusach he says in davening. He doesn't say Nusach Svar. He's a Rasha, he's a Tzedaki, he's an Apikairas. With that guy, you see how small his brim is on his black hat? It's not big enough! This time the Yetzer Hara's trick has to be much more clever, much more sly, much more cunning, much more conniving. This time the Yetzer Hara is not a strong lion. This time what is he? He's a fox. That's why by Bayis Sheni, what did the Tanoim see come out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim? The fox. So therefore, says the Aruch LaNer, "B'chor Bayis Sheni lo yahya la Yetzer Hara koyach kol kach, achar she'asku b'Torah u'va'avoda." We were involved in learning, we were involved in mitzvahs. Rak ayidei tachbulois u'mazimois nizra sina beineim. This is a derech of the Yetzer Hara, to be machshel tzadikim in the guise of mitzvahs. And that's why by Bayesheni they didn't see a lion, they saw the clever fox. I would like to suggest another pshat, and why by Bayes Rishon they saw the lion, and by Sheni they saw the fox. Yes, we know the fox is very clever, but there is one other thing that the fox represents in Shas. At one time, I said this over when we made our Siyam on Masechta Makos. Since then, I found the Chassam Sofer says the same thing, and we're gonna say like this. Another Gemara with Rabbi Akiva. Gemara in Brachas, Daf Samach Aleph Beis. One time, the Roman government made a decree that we should not learn Torah. So Pupus ben Yehuda,
Amen.
Pupus ben Yehuda found Rabbi Akiva was makil kehilos barabim v'oisek b'Torah. Amar lei, Akiva, you're not worried for your life? Says Rabbi Akiva, let me give you a mashal. You know what this is like? It's like a fox who was walking on the riverside, and he saw dugim gathering from one place to another. He said, where are you running? They said, we're running away from the fishermen, we're running away from the nets. So says the fox, I have an einfall. Why don't you come up to the dry land with me? There are no fishermen up here. Yeah. There are no nets. And me and you will live together in peace and harmony. Right? It's like us and the Palestinians, right? We'll live together. Just like my father and your father, they used to live together in the Altaheim. Let's go back to the good old days. Amrulai. They said to who? They said to the fox, you're the guy who they say you're Pikeach Shabachayas. You're not a Pikeach. You're a Tipish. The fish made a Kavachaymer. Uma b'makom chiyuseinu anu misyarim. If we're afraid in the place of our life, b'makom misaseinu alachas kama v'kama. So too, says Rabbi Akiva, if even in the water, if even in Torah, what does it say about Torah? Kihu chayecha v'orech yomecha. Kach. If even in the place of our chiyus, we're in danger. If we leave the Torah, we're dead meat. What do we see from this Gemara? What does the fox represent? The fox represents the Yetzer Hara for Bittul Torah. That's what we see from this Gemara. Rabbi Pupus ben Linus, he comes to Rabbi Akiva. Pupus ben Yehuda comes to Rabbi Akiva. He says, what are you, crazy? You're learning Barabim. You're not worried about your life? Rabbi Akiva says, you know who you're like? You're like the fox. That means the fox is the symbol of Bittul Torah. So everybody knows that with all the various reasons for the Churban, let me tell you what the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, in number 9, that we have 3 Avos and Moshe Rabbeinu. And we have 4 Golosim. And the last Golos is Keneged Moshe Rabbeinu. And why doesn't Moshe want to take us out of Golos already? Because Moshe is the Melamed Torah Le'amo Yisrael. And Moshe does not want to take us out of Golos if there's Bittul Torah. Says Orach Chaim HaKadosh, look at number 9. V'derech Remez, Yizbar HaKosov, Al derech Maimer Huva b'Sefer Zerach Chodesh Gdal Gol Yeshua Yisrael Kol Echad Mehem Nigalu Mimenu b'Zchus Echad. The first Golos is in the Zchus of Abraham. The second Golos is in the Zchus of Yitzchak. The third Golos is the Zchus of Yaakov. The fourth is the Zchus Moshe. V'lazeh nis'arech ha-Golos ki kol oid she'ein oiskim b'Torah v'mitzvos ein Moshe chofetz ligol. Moshe doesn't want to take us out. Say Moshe is going to be the Mashiach. It's well known, the opinion of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, yes, Moshe Rabbeinu will be Mashiach. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh says he's not from Shevet Yehuda. He says he's Kol all of Klal Yisrael, and if you understand, you understand. It's just one of those things. If you get it, you get it. So that means the Iker Siba of the Arichos of our Golos is Bittul Torah. By the way, we quoted... We mentioned all the Rabbeim of the Ramchal. Let's see what the Ramchal says. The Ramchal writes in the Derech Eitz HaChaim, It's a sefer. If you look in the back of most Mesilas Yesharim, they have the sefer Derech Eitz HaChaim. Listen to these words of the Ramban, of the Ramchal. Harei Tovin V'Seda, you'll understand and know. Shekal HaKabbalah Shenasati L'chal, all the traditions I mentioned to you, Ad Heina Heinemes, are all true. Limud Torasenu Huli Yetzer Hara V'Lesitra Achra Sam Hamaves. Learning Torah is poison to the Yetzer Hara. Ula Achenu Beis Yisrael Hu Sam HaChayim. V'Hinei Tireh Churban Beis Kodshenu V'Sefartenu V'Shegalinu Me'artzenu Haya Ba'avoin Bittul Torah. Like the Navi says, V'Amru Agoyim Al Ma'asa Hashem Kacha Al Asher Ozva Es Bris Hashem Elokei Avoisam Uvris Ha'amar Sham Hainu Torah. And we find Hashem is Mavater and Avodah Zarah Gilei Arayis Shvichas Damim V'Loi Viter Al Ma'asa Shal Torah Shenemar Al Ozam Es Tairasi. Chazal say in the Yerushalmi, go violate all the Torah of Es Tairasi Shamaru. Just learn Torah. Nimsa, listen to the words of Ramchal. Kol Hakas Shekoas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Al Amo Yisrael. Why was God so angry? Bishvil HaTorah. Ki b'chol Pa'ula ein mi sheyavan shar shabula echus ha'mahusa ki ma'apoyel ba'atzmai. Nobody knows how anything works except for the one who made it. L'chein HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who creates everything. He knows Eisek HaTorah hu roish l'chol ha'tikunim. Listen to what he writes. Klal hu biyadenu. Shekol dor shalai nivne beis hamikdash biyamav kilu nechrav. Right? So if you want to know, who destroyed the Beis HaMikdash?
We.
Us. All of us. We did it. Says the Ramchal, L'chein, kein hadavar hazeh, me'achar shalanu mishpat habachira limois b'rava l'bcharatov. Since we have the capacity to build the Beis HaMikdash and to make tikkunim al yidei esek tarasenu, ve'ein anu oiskim, and we're not involved, anu grama v'nizakin. Okay. So here we have the sources that with all the different reasons, Avoin Bittul Torah Haya Ba'ichrenu. It's Bittul Torah.
Isn't it ironic that on Tisha B'Av you should have learned Torah?
It's a very good question. That's a very good question. So how could it be that if the main rectification that we need to do is learning, how can we not learn on Tisha B'Av? That was Wednesday Shiur. And if you weren't here, you're cordially invited. So the Chassam Sofer, in going back to number 7, also gives us this limud that the Yeshual represents the Aveira of Bittul Torah. By the way,
But how does that coordinate with Sinus? We said, the main reason for the Churban Bayesheni was Sinus. Now we're saying it's Bittul Torah. Are they equivalent?
The first Churban.
how everything fits together. Look, there are many Mamorim in Chazal. Gemara and Shabbos says a number of things. How Sinas Chinam works together. By the way, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz learns. So what's the Sinas Chinam? The people loved each other. They didn't like the Rabbanim. That was the Sinas Chinam. So that could be a big interference with Bittul Torah. Okay, how everything fits together. That's one of those things that it's hard to know. Listen to what the Chassam Sofer says. Look in number 7, but on the second page, on the 4th line. V'amar Rabbi Akiva hachanami, uma b'shah sha'anu oiskim b'Torah ki hu chayenu v'orech yameinu anu misyarim im nishma l'kol hashual shaloi lasoik b'Torah. In other words, the Chassam Sofer is saying the shual, the fox, is the analogy of the Yetzer Hara for Bittul Torah. And then obviously he writes something which is very important to him because you see the way it's printed. Hinei ki kein hadavar hazeh mamish. Kol zman sheha yeshivos ba'olam. As long as there are yeshivas, af al pi she'atzayodim roitfim tamid. Even though there are fishermen, ve'ein rega b'loi pega, and every moment we deal with this and that, mikol malkim zchus haTorah megan. Aval ata hilbish es atzmai kishuel liyayitz letoiv levato kol hayeshivos. But now the Yetzer Hara is girding himself, is dressing up like the fox to close down the yeshivos. And if that comes, v'im yavich chas v'shalom v'yigash hara v'amagevo edvarim shanu yireim mi yogein b'yabasha b'li mei haTorah. Then we're in big trouble. So Chassam Sofer says that the fox represents the Yetzer Hara for Bittul Torah. And he uses that Gemara to explain why the Chachmei Yisrael were crying when they saw the fox emanating from the Beis Hamikdash. Listen carefully. We'll use the Aruch LaNer, but we'll use it for our own purposes. The Aruch LaNer said the fox represented the cause of the Beis Hamikdash. What was it? Sinas Chinam, the crafty, clever fox. That's also true, Sinas Chinam. But the fox represents another Yetzer Hara. Which Yetzer Hara? Bittul Torah. So that's also why they were crying. They realized the first Beis Hamikdash was the lion, also Allah's Vamas Tairasi. But now the Arichas Hagolos, which the Ramchal writes, what's the reason for the Arichas Hagolos? That's the fox, that's the Avera of Bittul Torah. Now let's add one good note. So why was Rebbi Akiva laughing? What kind of sense of humor is that? What kind of sense of humor is that?
He said it was only temporary, because the fox was just the shaita. Said, Lo said Lavo, we're not going to have this problem.
Says the Aruch LaNer, and again we'll use him for our purposes. The Aruch LaNer is in his world that the fox represents what? Sinas Chinam. So Aruch LaNer says, this is number 11. The same way by Bayis Rishon they saw the lion emanating from the first Beis Hamikdash. What did that represent? It was leaving. They no longer had to deal with it. It was under control. That's what it represented. When Rabbi Akiva saw the fox first trampling on the temple mount, but then leaving, Yatsa mi Beis Hamikdash, Rabbi Akiva laughed, because that means he saw in the end of days, when the Avera of Sinas Chinam was leaving our people, and we had it under control, the same way we had under control the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah, and we'll use for our purposes, when Rabbi Akiva saw at the end of days that the Avera of Bittul Torah was leaving, so then he was able to laugh. He saw the ultimate tikkun, the ultimate rectification. Marav Rabbi Sai, I'm going to share with you mamish now, Dover Nifla Ma'od. I once said it over, I don't think I said it over here, I said it over in Tennessee.
We went there.
But you heard that share, I think. But I think I once said it over elsewhere. And at the time I quoted it from the Chidah. And I said, I don't know where the Chidah says it, but I heard somebody quote it from the Chidah. And I asked around, where in the world the Chidah say it? Nobody knows. I don't want to say that the Chidah doesn't say it, but I don't think the Chidah says it. Because I looked. And I asked somebody who knows, he knows everything, he couldn't find it. But he knows he heard it. And lo and behold, this week I bought a new sefer. And the sefer is from Rav Avram Shiur. It's called Halekach v'Halibov on Tammuz and Av. And he quotes something I once quoted from the Chidah in the name of Rabbeinu Binyamin Vitali, a Talmud of Rav Moshe Zakuta. Rav Moshe Zakuta. And none of this, I had no intention of mentioning that country today. It's just what he
country would that be?
And he has a whole long piece, but he says, Adavar Nifla Ma'od, we'll see if we could find exactly where here. And that is, who are these Shualim? So the way I heard it is you unscramble the word Shualim and you get Yishmael. Yishmael. And when you see the Arabs prancing around the Har HaBayis, then you know the end of days are coming. Why? Because we have a tradition from the Arizal, this is I'm adding, that the last Golos, the Golos of Rome, the Golos of the Christian Golos, is really two parts, where the end of it is Golos Yishmael. And in fact, the Balaturim says the juxtaposition of the end of Chayei Sarah and the beginning of Toldos, Al Pnei Kol Echav Nafal Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak, says the Balaturim, when Yishmael falls, Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak is B'gematria Pinchas. That's when Eliyahu Navi is coming. So Rabbi Akiva, when he saw the Arabs prancing on the Har HaBayis, he knew it was only a matter of time. Rabbi Akiva Mitzachek, when he saw. Now, the problem is that if you unscramble Shualim, you don't exactly get Yishma. Why? Because there's no Aleph in Shualim. So, okay, you want to spell Shualim with these, take out the Vav from Shualim also, right? But but there's no aleph. So the way Rabbi Yamin Vitali says it, let's see if I could find it here, is that the gematria, I found it, in Year Zechus, 5 lines from the end. V'duk, ki shualim im hakoilel hu bechivun Yishmael. The gematria of shualim plus 1 is Yishmael.
Oh, wow.
Is Yishmael. So he doesn't quite say that this idea that the Yishmael will be at the end of days, but he does say that shualim is a remez to Yishmael. So I think, to me, it's a big simcha to have a documented source that shualim refers to the Yishmaelim. But I can't help but share with you the following. And this I know somebody who is a great admirer of. I would like to say I'm a Talmud, but I unfortunately did not spend enough years, maybe only 3 years. I heard from Avigdor Miller, and not only this, I heard that he wanted to publish his book by a big publishing company. But they didn't want him to publish this, and they didn't give it to him. They didn't allow him to publish it, and he published it himself. And I believe also, this is one of the things Rabbi Akiva was laughing at. And it's something we think about. Isn't it a chilul? Isn't it a disgrace that here it is, the holiest spot on earth, we can't even go there? And as bad as that is, not only can we not go there, it's being trampled on by the Pereh Adam. Isn't that al zeh haya davel libenu? You know, the only spot in the world we cannot daven, the only spot in the world that you cannot daven today is the Harabayas. You know that? The only spot in the world a Jew is not allowed to daven today is the Harabayas. The answer is, if you know how to look at it, it's a big simcha. Why is that? So Avigdor Miller says like this. He says, had God given it to any other people, what would they do? If God would give it to us, first of all, what would we do? We would go there. And you're not allowed to. We would go there, so you would have secular people go there. They would come with their cameras, they would come with their women, and they would disgrace the place, they would defile the place. So God gave it to the only people who will guard it from us, who will make sure that no women go there and defile and disgrace the place, won't take any pictures, and most importantly, will make sure we don't go there.
They defile it.
The Mohammedans. So they're not if they have Avodah Zarah. If Hashem would give it to the Christians, they would put all their icons and images there, they would disgrace the place. So Hashem did us a favor. He gave it to the Mohammedans. There's no Avodah Zarah, there are no Nashim Prutzais, and most importantly, they make sure that we don't go there. Yes, ultimately when we look at it, Al zeh haya davel libenu. But I believe Rabbi Akiva knew this verse from Avigdor Miller, and that's why he was laughing, because he realized it's the biggest practical joke. They think they're controlling it for themselves. No, they're doing our work, and we don't even have to pay them. They're giving. How is that? We can't go there. They make sure we don't go there. They make sure it's not defiled, and they're preserving it for the great day when the Har HaZeisim will split open, and Mirz Hashem will be zoicha to Gilul Yohanavi. And the Binyan Beis Hamikdash, v'sachazenu einenu b'shuv chol tzion b'rachamim. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.